I'm going to start recording. All right, so here we are again for session 2. As I mentioned, we're going to start getting into a lot of meat and potatoes. I did hear from several of you in terms of what you would like to accomplish. Again, if you have anything that you're really passionate about, let me know, email me, even if it's the biggest objection you get. Because, again, these sessions go by fast. An hour and a half, sounds like a lot. But for any session, we could take 3, 4, 5 hours on any one session. So I'd love to make sure we're giving everyone everything that they want out of this. So let's just recap this levers of Temp and why I started with it. And, again, the bottom line is we all want to grow our businesses. We all want to grow our desks. And that's why you're signed up for the course. And, the easy way to do it, not easy, but the obvious way, I should say, is, via selling and, target planning and management, which we'll get in today, and growing your account base and overcoming the objections and a lot of the things that you all requested you want to talk about. However, with the temp business, just like perm, it obviously is very statistically oriented, but perm is a very long cycle for any deal. It could take, weeks. And in this market, perm's been taken up to a month, whereas a temp job can fill and often fills instantly or within minutes or, on average, no more than a couple of hours. Therefore, these laws of averages and activity really affect the business, and you can see it very tangibly. So, again, this was just showing there's, of course, lots of ways. We know we can increase our client base, and we know by filling more orders, which is a key area, we could obviously increase our temps out, and that ties into inventory management. That ties into how we're taking job orders. That ties into control that we're going to get into next week, and really being the expert and trying to lock out the competition. Quality, the better they are, the longer they stay on. Now, in the perm world, when you make a placement, it either sticks or it's a fall off. Here, the quality of our fill, can dramatically impact our length of assignment, which means, of course, the longer our length of assignment, the more temps we have out, the more contractors we have out, for any given fill activity. That's why Tom and Roman at, 5-6 months on average, they need to fill a lot less than everyone else to generate the same number of hours. Or, consequently, they could fill at the same level that everyone else is filling in terms of fills per day or per week and have many, many more hours out, double, let's say, from the finance people out there and the nurse contracting. Right? So that's why we want to focus on all this. Tuesday's lesson can be confusing to a lot of people if you're not really into math. So I really want to clarify and just summarize now that you've had a chance to digest it. The basic point was that, yes, you're going to need to look at all these different ratios and matrices besides just the obvious let's sell, right? Let's increase our sales. The point was that no matter what you've been doing, if you just go back to all your data and you want to do it for your desk and ideally work with your boss so you can figure it out what the whole branch did because you want to use that as benchmarks. But if you look at what you've done, what you've filled on average over the last, let's say, 3 months, which is a nice period of time for averages. You could do it over 4 months. You could do it over 6 months. Okay? And hello, Angela just joined us. So hi, Angela. So if you just look at what you filled over that period of time, and then you look at where your contractors or temps are averaging now, obviously that's roughly the number of fills you need per week to get to where you are. So simply by dividing the two, the number of temps you have out working divided by your average fills will tell you over the last 13 weeks, of course, how many fills you had to have per week to get to that number. So that's also your fill factor. Mathematically speaking, it just happens to turn out for good reason why that's your length of assignment. So it's important because if you have a goal, as I mentioned, to go from, let's say, 30 to 40 temps out working, it's great to have those goals, and you all need them, and I guarantee you all of your managers have set goals for you on where your desk has to be or where your division has to be or your branch or whatever setup you have. So, once you just simply back into this fill factor number, that, the number of temps on average roughly that you have now divided by your average number of fills, ballpark, that is the number that you need to multiply your fills by to see how many extra you're going to have in a couple of months. Meaning, again, if you have 30 temps out and you want to go to 40, well, you know you need 33%, right, more fills, so whatever your number is, it'll be multiplied by that. And quite simply, using the example that we had for the finance guys yesterday, if their fill factor is 10, which happens to mean the average length of assignment is 10 weeks, it means for every extra 2 fills that they add onto their book every single week, if they do that regularly, multiply that by the fill factor or the average length of assignment, and they'll have 20 temps that are left out. Okay? Any questions on that before I show you guys some charts and give you some tools that you can have? Anything? All right? Remember, do not wait for me to ask for questions. You could chime in anytime you want, all right? And don't be embarrassed. Now, Bill and I had an offline conversation because he said, hey, look, we have per diem nurses, right? Remember that? And they're daily, and it doesn't work. And what I explained is the math always works. And even forget about the math. If Bill has nurses that come on and off each day, and some people don't show up, or again, you have bad quality and you have to refill it, his factor is just going to be different. In other words, let's say no one falls off. He has to fill 5 nurses a day. That's 25 fills a week for him to get 5 nurses out on the book on any given basis. So instead of him having, let's say, a fill factor of 10, his fill factor is going to be in the decimal. It's 0.2. It means every fill he gets 0.2 of a person out on billing. It means he needs 5 additional per diem nurses filled in order for 1 to show up later. Right? Make sense? All right. Yep. What I want to show you now are some really good tools that I have for you. So I'm going to show you a level of levers of temp. Let me just get it up there so it shows. And all right, you should all be seeing in a second right now. Okay? Does everyone see the screen? If you can't, let me know. Okay, this is in your toolbox. Okay, all of these slides that I'm going to show you now in these Excel sheets are yours. I do ask that you keep them as yours and never share with anyone else outside of the class. I don't share these types of things when strangers or even people on the free training ask me if I have this or that. They have to come to the classes to get this stuff. So again, everyone can see it, yes?
Yes. Yes.
We're good with the share? Okay. So understand how this works. And again, if it's easier for you and you want to go ahead and just pull up from your materials section, you can download that. You can actually open up your own files and take a look at it. Now, this can be used by an individual, which is most of you. It could be used by a manager, which is some of you. And it's just really great to help you sort of dial into what it is that you need to do. And it'll help calculate a lot of these things we've talked about. So if you look at how this is set up, you'll basically take, all right, what's your starting number of contractors out? You can use sec fields, columns D or E, which is location A or B. I suggest you do it if you can find out what your company averages are or what you're trying to strive for. Okay, but you really only need to deal with one column. So you have where you're starting out. You also enter your starting number of clients. All right, so that's the number of clients that you're actually billing over this 13-week period. I'm using a 13-week period for this. What is your average number of, your total number of client presentations that you've made? That's the face-to-face visits to sell the temporary services. Perm people, you can insert your perm there. Okay? This will then calculate your penetration, which is a number that we talked about and we'll continue to talk about a little bit more today. So again, you'll have your penetration and you can compare it to how some of the others are doing. I'm asking you here now to put in your fill factor. Now, I don't want you just to take a guess and say it's 13 or it's 6 months. I want you actually to do the math that I talked about. Take a look at all the fills you had over the last 3 or 6 months. And then see where your temps were approximately at the end of that period and divide to get a rough idea. All right, the next one will show you the number of offs that happen on average, and you can tell that that's actually a calculated field, okay? And that's how the fill factor works. We have the fill ratio in there, which is real easy for you to figure out. Either your front office system will tell you, or right when you're doing the manual math, it doesn't take long. When you do the manual math, I need you simply to take a look at the total fills that you had, divide that by the total orders that you had, okay? Now, I ask you all to jot this down for next week, for Tuesday. I want you all to please submit to me before class via email what your stats turned out to be. It is only a, I'd say less than a half-hour exercise. I'm not big on asking you guys to submit stuff or do projects offline just for the sake of giving you homework, so you could say, wow, gee, Neil's giving me homework, or so your managers are pleased with what they're paying for. This is super critical that you understand it, and you also see how it compares to what you thought it would be. Okay, so you just fill in your fill ratio there. This is your client's loss during the period. Okay, now this is what, again, you're just going to take it from your past historical data. All right, and then your success rate. Again, a number you should know, but ballpark it. Go into your system, go into your sheets. How many clients have you visited roughly in the last quarter, which we have, but how many of those turned into job orders? Now, again, this is a number you could put in. You could calculate it very simply. Everything below this line now is calculated automatically by the data that you put in. So you could see the number of clients that you're going to lose. You could see the number of clients that you've retained. You could see the new clients, that come in, etc. This is basically going to show you everything that you need to do and what you want to accomplish by the end of the period. Okay? So now look, if you look at this first example where I'm highlighted, you could see that if we do the activity, that we mentioned in terms of, again, those were the assumptions up top, you could see this first consultant is going to actually shrink in their number of temps, right? Compare that to the second consultant example where they're going to go up by 10. Now, this is 10 extra contractors working out. Now, what are the reasons for that? People quickly look. Why do you see? So why did, person B increase much higher? Anyone? Don't be shy.
Number of clients
Roman,
is lower.
what do you say? I'm sorry?
Hold on, I had to hit unmute on my phone. Sorry, it's loud here in the office. They had a higher fill factor, obviously.
Right, so higher length of assignment, absolutely.
And a higher fill ratio, and they lost less clients.
Right, and they lost less clients, and they have a higher, client presentation rate.
Correct.
Right, so you guys can play with all this stuff, all right, and it's a great tool to have. It's a good tool for you guys to share with your boss anyway, so they don't have to recreate it. And it's a really nice way to see if your plan's going to work and is it enough. So this could tie into, again, you could tweak it. I always came from the school that as a manager, I always had the hardest time driving people for the new business development. I would always still drive it, and it's super important. But again, as you can probably figure out, I'd like to really figure it out on the fill ratio. So if everyone else in your group, is filling, 75% of all the orders that they get, and you find that you're only filling 68, you need to always set the average as your floor. Set the average of what everyone else is doing as the lowest that you would ever do, which means if you do that, you'll always be above average by definition. So again, you can play with all those numbers, and this will just give you a good idea when you put it all together how that works. Now, your fill factor is not something you're just going to be able to change overnight. Again, it's better quality. It's trying to extend it. When people say the assignment came to an end, it's trying to get creative with them if they really like the person to see where else they can utilize them. It might mean, and again, I'm talking about a lot of different options. I've seen people very successful when it comes to an assignment to end to do what a lot of other businesses do outside of staffing. And that's to basically realize that you've already made a sale, you already got the money you wanted, and then in essence you're trying to upsell someone or sell them a different product, right? I mean, you ever see if you go on, you buy something you want on an internet site, and while you're there, they'll try to give you something else, or they'll offer you something else at a discount for that one time. The reason they do it is because all the marketing money, all the effort, everything spent to get you to buy has been done. So, now any other sale that's meant is gravy. So has anyone out there played with when an assignment's coming to an end and you ask them, where else they could use this person, and let's say they don't have any needs, that you then offer them some sort of special rate? Or since the money's been made and you don't have something for the candidate, to maybe, again, offer them a month at a very special discounted deal as a thank you, which, of course, thanks you as well because it's all gravy. Anyone do that? Anyone?
No. No.
All right. So look, with these things, again, just think very creatively how you can do all the things to extend the assignment. Because, again, if you average 10 weeks and you just have it go one extra week, that means, again, you get 10% more revenue, 10% more margin, right, on absolutely everything you do. And it's a lot of money there. It means you have to have less fills to get to your target, or it's easier to get to your target or to exceed your target. So again, there's lots of ways, and we're going to talk about, when we get into the training, we talk about the different calls that we're going to make, the different ways that we could extend all this stuff. That's how it'll work. So again, you have this to play with. I know some people love spreadsheets. Most people seem to love getting lots of tools. So that's great. Let me open up
I have a question.
next one. Yes.
Hello. Hi. I
Yes.
have a question about
Hi.
what you consider client presentations. Are you talking about actually submitting resumes to the client? Or are you talking about going out and visiting the client and presenting your company?
Yeah, I'm talking about visiting your client, presenting the company for the purpose of getting temp business, then or down the road.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Now, again, for those of you're a local practice, right, Angela? But for those that do practice, outside of a local marketplace, you have a national practice. It would be a real sales call, a real virtual presentation of some sort. Okay. All right. This next tool that you're going to see up is an activity planning worksheet. Now, what it does, the other one's good for just plugging in and seeing what your fill factor is and all that sort of fun stuff. This one, basically takes some similar data. You'll see, I tried to use some similar numbers in there. And this is going to just break it down to whatever your goals are. This is going to break it down into what sort of order activity you need, what sort of client activity you need, and what sort of fill activity you need to accomplish your goals. So, on some of the pre-registration, a whole bunch of you said, look, our goal is, in financial additions, well, for example, one office, we're at 10 temps. Maybe the answer is we want to be at 14 temps by the end of the quarter, or 15 temps by the end of the quarter, or it's 20. And Bill, hey, we're at 30 nurses here. We have a 3-month plan. We want to get up to 45. Okay, so whatever the case is, here's where you can now plug it in. So this example, you can see here's our starting contractor. It's 36, and we want to end the period at 46. Now, in this case, this spreadsheet is set up so you don't need to work within a quarter. You might have a monthly goal. You might have a 6-month goal. You might want to look at what your goal is over, to accomplish this within the next 12 months. So anyway, you could put in the number of weeks to meet that goal. Okay, so once you have that in there, and this is something that you'll want to use all the time, what it's going to allow you to do is just stop with all the math, stop with, having to figure this stuff out all the time, and be able to constantly reassess your plan and hit the game running. All right, so obviously it does the math that tells you need 10 more contractors. Your offs are calculated, just by the system itself, okay? Your fills per week, and that's just going to take a rough ballpark sort of estimate. Now, your fills per week, it's going to calculate your total fills. That's going to show you what you need to accomplish this, okay? So you'll play with your different stats. You're going to see how that's going to change. Once again, it has your fill ratio. You're going to enter that data. Obviously, the higher fill ratio, the easier it's going to be to accomplish things. It's going to show you the number of orders that you need based upon your fill ratio to get those fills. You're going to enter your current client count. You're going to enter your penetration, which is the number of contractors or temps per account. And then again, just walk through it. It's going to show you how many clients you need in order to accomplish that based on what you've been averaging. Right? So, hey, we're going to need to have 27 clients at this period. Now, again, if you look at this, compared to the last sheet, they could work together. But in essence, you need to go from 21 in this example to 27 clients based on what you've been averaging. Neil, can we actually just keep the 21 and make our goal penetrating our accounts more? Yes. So instead of 1.33, you have 1.71, or maybe instead of 1.71, it's 2.2. All right, but you always want to play with both. Your client turnover, I'll explain what that is in another slide in a bit. But again, that's just we're really just gonna look at retention, all right, which are both of these, what they're gonna show you. And then it's going to show you, obviously, the number of clients you're going to lose, the number of new clients that you need based on clients that you're going to lose, et cetera, et cetera. This will break it down, and again, I don't want to spend too much time because I think the spreadsheet is very obvious. If you work on it and you have questions, you want to email me, you want to call me offline, let's do it. But again, it's really plug and play. It'll tell you how many, similar to the last one, how many new client visits you need per week. Okay, but this is really at a desk or branch, sort of level, and it has the basic fill factor and all that information. The other one's going to help you break much more detail and in terms of the sales calls and all of that you need. Okay, make sense? Any questions on this? Okay, so again, you'll have that all of these are in your download section. Now, I just wanted to show you this tool that I use all the time in managing all of my branches. Now, again, I know only a couple of you are managers on here, but this is the kind of thing. Now, can you see it, or if you're maximized, or do I need to zoom in at all? Okay?
No, good.
Okay. So for you individually, now, again, you have this sheet. If you really get into using it, you should have it populated and run in from your accounting system or your front office system that will ultimately tie it in. But basically, I would look at all of the regions, all the clusters, all the offices. Now, I listed this as region, cluster, office. You can list it as individual, group, physical office. It could be anything you want. I just start with the biggest group and work on down. For those of you just on a desk, I think you still want to see what your group or company average is so you can compare, and it's real easy to get that data. Again, all you have to do is just fill it out for you. So you're going to want to look at your penetration on a regular basis and constantly populate this, because again, you're going to want to see what the charts look like over time. For managers, this is what I was telling Bill, and Bill had at one period like 12 people. The best thing that you want to do is list this for every single one of your staff, and if you have separate departments, then set it up that way too, so you can see how people vary. Now, maybe you average, and I made up numbers that I put in here. Maybe you average 1.8 nurses per department or per hospital, but at any given time. However, how does that vary? Why does someone have 3 and another person consistently have 1? Okay, I don't want to keep going back to the same stuff we talked about on Tuesday. Here is, again, the fill factor, and you can have the same thing. Here's the fill ratio, all these numbers we talked about. Growth or decrease in average weekly clients. If I can give you any key tip, it's that this is what you need to be most concerned about. Now, Roman, I fully agree with your point before that you don't want to service more accounts than you could possibly handle. And penetrating account is awesome. I mean, when you look at any of these things, they don't mean anything in a vacuum, right? So again, if we go back, the only one that does is fill ratio. I mean, fill ratio, you need to fill as many of these as you can. Okay, your penetration, well, what's the right number? I will tell you overall with numbers, you need to be really careful, because what I found in the temp business is that most people don't have their pulse around the activity and the items that really drive the business, right? It's all about let's increase the business, let's fill more. Okay, that's great. But, these are the things that are going to drive it. And you know what? I have been to so many businesses where great-looking financials or reports don't correlate to a successful business. I mean, I'd see great financial results, but the business itself is in very scary shape. I've seen great financial results where the business is in great shape. I've seen bad financial results where, wow, things have shrunk. My gosh, people aren't making commission, but you know what? All the underlying activity is awesome, and I'm really comfortable with how that business is going to take off in the future. And, of course, I've seen, bad-looking numbers where the branches are bad. The point is, you can't know by just looking at the reports that most of you are looking at, and some of the ones that we talked about the other day. You have to look at all of this. So now in a vacuum, I don't know what penetration means other than what does it mean over a period of time. Do I want to have a high or a low one? Well, what could it mean? What's the pro of having a really high penetration? What's the advantage? Anyone? Roman, let's go back to you. What's the advantage of having high penetration?
Well, I mean, all your focus can be on one client, and you really put everything into it, and it's a lot easier to work with a client that you have experience working with, knowing, what their pain points are and how to solve those versus when you get a new client, a lot of times it's a lot of hand-holding process involved, so it just makes it easier.
Right, much more efficient, right?
Yeah.
Right, and it's always easier, and I think you said it also. I mean, someone said it on the previous call. It's always easier to network within your existing clients and to try to grow existing clients and to secure a whole new one. What's the downside? What do you think, Tom? What's the downside to having a really high one? Why is that a problem?
I don't know.
Low diversification.
Right. Okay, Lubos. Yeah, the diversification. All your eggs are in one basket. And look, there's nothing wrong if you either worked at it or, frankly, even if you didn't work at it, you want to get that. My only point is you want to know that it's high, or it's higher than your peers, or it's higher than average, because it means that your desk or your business is more susceptible to collapse. I mean, Beryl emailed me yesterday. She worked at a massive branch in her own company where we always said this. They were always one of the top offices in the country, but they were really dependent on a whole bunch of huge accounts. Now, they got killed eventually, and the branch became a major problem because they just weren't diversified, and everyone was filling and servicing all the time and not developing, relationships or I should say, new business. So if you are high, it's great, but I can look at a financial result. You guys can come to me in a month and show me what you did, and I can say, this is awesome, great commissions, great all this. And it's great that you've been able to penetrate the accounts like this, but this is a little scary. You're not growing your business enough as some of the other people are, and you might be, in some trouble later. Now, a low penetration, just the opposite. If it's really low, well, the upside is none of your eggs are in any one basket, and the downside is the opposite, of this. There's something like, why is your penetration going down? Why is it so much lower? And that's something that you need to look at, because again, if your clients really like you should be getting more business. Okay, fill factor, again, the longer the better. Fill factor, as I explained to Bill, he said we get a lot of no-shows, people that won't even go on per diem nurses because for whatever reason they change their mind or something else comes in. But fill factor takes all that into account. So if someone no-shows or someone walks off a job or if your client fires them prematurely, if you have pretend you have a bad month of all these things happening, you're going to count all of those as fills. You're not obviously going to have those people out working, when you do your numbers, and the end result is your fill factor is going to be low. So you do want to know how you compare over time and how you compare to others, and that's real critical. Okay, the growth in number of accounts is one of the biggest things I would look at on a desk. I mean, that's what you constantly look at your client development and not just how many hours. You might be getting great, awards. Obviously, your employer values you and they're paying for you to come to this course. That's awesome. But again, make sure that you're really seeing a regular growth in your clients. These other two to go through fast, I'd spend a lot of time on this if this was a manager course, but for you, it's still important. What's your retention year to date? Now, again, the way that I suggest you do it is simply look at your total accounts service for any month that you do this, divided by the total accounts that you serviced the previous year. So in this example, 120% means you have 20% total more clients that you've been billing or working with this year over last year. And I think the reason for that is obvious. I just want to point out it's different from a monthly retention, because what that does is it takes the current month number of clients that you have. So if you have, a 2-to-1 penetration, you've got 30 temps out, that means you have 15 clients. If now, and look, we're in the month of December, so November closed. Let's say you've only dealt with 15 total clients in the entire year, and you're also dealing with 15 now. That means you're basically retaining 100% of your clients, right? And again, the number could be lots of different things. It's just a great way to see where the business is going. I want to show you what you can do with it. I mean, you guys won't have these charts because they have to be populated, but this will just give you a nice idea of what you can look at for your own business and at least, what it tells you, right? So this is penetration. This actually compares some different locations in different regions. You could compare different individuals. Why are these numbers so different? Why are they going up? Why are they going down? That sort of thing is what you want to look at. Same thing with, fill factor. It's the same deal. You just get a nice picture over what's happening. for me, even if there weren't charts or I'd get all the data, anytime I'd ever work with a struggling consultant or a branch manager or a country that had issues, I would just look at all this stuff. It's penetration. Let's look at how long things are lasting, how they're trending, what's the norm around here. Let's look at how we're filling the positions, what's happening with our client growth. Okay? Can we move on? You all sort of get that? Or any questions on this? Anyone? Okay. So again, you'll have those as a tool. And now what I want to do is just go back to continuing on some of the overall sales things that we talked about. And then what we're going to do when we're done with this is we're going to start going into the sort of territory management. So I put this on in here because it really belongs in an overview. Oh, it's not sharing. Okay. Hang on. Okay, and okay, it just went back for whatever reason. Okay. Now, this too, I'm going to go through fast because we don't have a beginner class. Just remember, I like to always put anything we do on sales, temp, perm, you name it, outside sales, all comes down to the basic steps in selling. And in any course you ever have taken, I'm sure you've seen it come down to these. Maybe they just changed the words a little bit. So it's prospecting, which is the first step. And it's one that, you know, you'll hear about me later on today, and a lot of courses I do. I think it is by far one of the most overlooked things in our industry. So many industries spend so much time in true lead generation, in true research, in true data mining, so that they can increase their percentage of success. And that's what prospecting is. Right? Prospecting being a master prospector. Right? Then, when you're done prospecting, we finally have the contact or the interview. Then we have the qualification and the needs analysis. And then we make our presentation or our pitch. Then we handle the objection. Then we pre-close it, a hypothetical. Then we close it, and then we follow up, right? So those are the basic steps. Now, prospecting, like I said, we're going to get into later today, and I think it solves most, you know, ills and ails what hurts you, right? And for the temp business. For the contact or the interview, it's whether we're, again, making our sales pitch, whether we're dealing with the interviewing a recruiter, and we're going to go through some key ways to do this. Now, none of you really requested how to recruit more people in this market, and I get that. So we're going to be talking a lot about marketing, and before we get into objection handling, we're going to talk about, you know, during the course, what's the best way to make calls? What are some of the key techniques you use to get you more successful? How do you skill market someone in? Right? You know, how do we do some research and use some of these other tools like LinkedIn, etc., so that we can make some success? Okay. The next step is the qualification or the needs analysis. And this is if we find out whether they could be a buyer of a product or service or not. You should know, I come from the school that we shouldn't be in the business of educating people on why they need temps if they haven't used temps before, if they have no need. You know, you can't convince someone, and this is what I talk to people all the time about when they, you know, email me, hey, Neil, can you give me some help on this? You can't convince someone to buy something, really, that they don't want to buy. And, you know, there's a lot of sales trainers, and Jeff Gittimer, who thinks the exact same way I do on that. Your time should be spent qualifying and trying to find the people that can and will buy. All right, so again, qualification then will come down to really the way I summarize it, and we'll get into this in the needs section when we talk about, you know, the visits and the sales and what, you know, what we have to gather. But qualification for me in sales is so simple, right? When it comes to the next step, which is presentation, and that is that anything we ever find out, we want to find out so we can help sell to them, so we can close them. In other words, we want to ask them during the qualification stage of what it is that they want to hear from us to be convinced. And it's that simple. Basically, please tell me what words you want me to tell you so that you'll buy. Right, Mr. Candidates, tell me what it is exactly that you need to hear from me so that you'll take the temp assignment, or so that you would take the temp assignment for less money than you currently say you want. Or Mr. Client, so that you take our person over somebody else. Or Mr. Client, so that you'd meet with me. Right? And again, obviously we need to deliver on it. We're not just going to throw out words that don't mean anything and lie. but we need to hear from them exactly what they want to hear. Now, we're going to cover that in really how we could take the work order and distinguish ourselves as the real contractor expert and do a much better job than what your competition is doing, right? That'll help us qualify and get these hot buttons at so many different levels, right? So the hot buttons on to hire the person, just to interview if they're requiring it for a temp job or a long-term. And again, we're going to use and learn all the tools, of course, so that we can get these immediate fills without having to go through all the rigmarole that we do. Now, the presentation is giving our basic pitch. That's a problem, you know, it's solving everything. Whatever it is, it's the pitch. It's where we're going for the gusto. It's when, you know, we're basically telling what we're trying to achieve, all right? And we spit back everything it is that they told us that they want to hear, right? Then, of course, we do that. We get our lovely objections. And we're going to handle that in the course in pretty good detail. We're going to go through some basic objection handling theory, okay, and what a lot of people do, especially for some reason in this industry, what they do wrong, and how you can get better at it. And then what I want to do is I want to address the biggest issues that are affecting you on your desk today that you want solved and you want help with from this course. So, again, I'll be honest, I only heard from 3 people, okay, and that's fine. And the agenda was already made, so you obviously didn't want to have it tweaked. I would like to hear from all of you, and please take some time to think about the 1 or the 2, or I don't care if you give me 5, just sort of rank them for me. Please email me at some point in the next day or 2 the objections that you really want to hear what other people have to say. I'm not assuming that you're not good at it. I mean, it could be one that you think, you know what, hey, I think I'm pretty good at this, but because it's the one I'm hearing the most, I really want to hear, you know, what the group is saying, okay? So we're going to spend great time on that. They're largely going to be client objections, but we're definitely going to handle some of the candidate objections, especially when it comes to price and things of that nature, okay? Pre-closing, we don't have a session on it per se, although you're going to see that embedded in everything that we do. And again, I was taught that way from day one, you know, the pre-closing. But I look at it no matter what we do, when we throw out our spiel, our pitch, we just always want to get in the habit of saying something to the effect of, you know, look, hypothetically speaking, so if I were able to do this, that, and this, then am I correct? You know, so are you saying then that you would do Z? Right? Okay, so, you know, let me ask you something then. Based upon this interview, and I know that ideally, you prefer not to work in an emergency room setting, but let's say you did, that if I were to find something that had a longer-term assignment, something where it has potential for maybe they could take you on full time, and it's a hospital that's within about 10 minutes from your house, you would definitely do that, right? Pre-close with the hypothetical. Always, even if they just told you and you think it's obvious. Now, the close, you know, I don't come from a school of having to make a hard close. If someone, you know, does the sales process right, if you qualified, if you presented, if you really dealt with the objection handling right, and then you said, okay, so now if I handled that, you know, can I assume then that we're ready to move forward? It really is just a question, and it shouldn't be huge training because the close is a sum of everything that we've done. Then we have service and follow-up, which we're going to talk about service on the desk for penetrating in sales, but not so much in the post-temp follow-up, just a couple of tips. Okay? So, again, you'll have all these slides. Hopefully you downloaded them. They're from the other day. I'm always going to be referring back to this in lots of different ways about how we do it. And this slide, I don't want to insult you. You've all been in the business. I certainly make it clear for rookies that they get that we're not just selling when, you know, we're trying to close a deal. We are selling to get an appointment. That's a sales process. When we try to solicit an order, that's a sales process. All right, when we try to get them to hire someone or take them on immediately, that's a sales process. When we try to get them not even to, hear about the person we're going to put on the assignment, but just allow us to call them and tell them their name and when they're going to be starting, right? Anything. Okay, same deal with a candidate. It's the entire process to get them to register, to get them to meet with us, to get them to have an interview with us, to give us all the information they want, to go and take a certain temp assignment. right, to stay on the temp assignment, to take less money, whatever. It's all of those things. Okay, so that's there for you. All of these notes, anyone there? Okay, all right, I'm back now. It says I was temporarily lost. Okay, sorry about it. How long was I gone for?
A minute or two.
Anyone? All right, so where did we leave off? I left off. All right, well, what I was going to show you is I'm not going to go through all of the rest of this now. You don't need it. It's just your basic, sort of points for all this. Now, I wanted to point out, all right, so you see all these things that we're going through? All right, so you'll have that as part of the hand that I was saying that you had yesterday. Some key points that I want to make out, we're going to get into this when it's time for the MPC and MPT calls, most placeable temp, which we're going to do in a future session. What I call AIDA, or I didn't make it up, but it's the attention method that we're going to do, the credibility we're going to use, and really ways to use scripting and tonality, and again, all the best material so you can get through your prospect. All right, so again, here's the stuff. We'll cover these specifically. Now remember, I asked all of you to read and read for homework Hypnosis Prognosis. All right, it is a great session. It is one that people love, but I have it on an ebook format. I didn't want to just go through it here. But it's critical that if you haven't read it, that you do read it, and you begin to look at how you can utilize these tips of persuasion. And it all talks about using third-party stories and using empathy and emotion and all those great things. Now I'll refer to that when we get into the different sections and features, but please read that because that can help you out with everything that we do. All right, so this is just so basic stuff. So you got to remove or use your time. Nice. All right, so let's move on then. Any questions on the sort of sales overview stuff, right, and the matrices that we just talked about from before? Anything? Anyone? Okay. Now, this is a session that Bill saw at the NJSA. It is one of the most popular sessions that I give for all different types of businesses. It's actually one where I get some of the most requests when people actually seen it to deal with it, with their groups or other webinars. I'm doing it with the ASA very, very soon. But listen, here's the key, and hopefully you all listen to the video that I have. And I want to go through the video so that I don't have to repeat everything that was in that video, although this is much longer, and so that we could really get down to the nitty-gritty and the meat and potatoes on here. All right, is there anyone who did not watch the Less is More laser prospecting video for homework? Anyone?
I didn't get a chance to watch it. Hopefully our corporate's going to fix our computers here soon.
Yeah, if not, Tom, just try. You can use the link at home.
Okay.
That's probably the best thing to do because it's pretty quick. But the only problem is I'd like to utilize the class time to get into some of the bigger details and anything I have that can avoid some redundancies. It'll help if you do the videos. There's not a ton that you're going to need to see at home, but it'll help. So I'm going to gloss over the early stuff that is redundant on the video. But again, I'll still cover enough for you, Tom, so you get it. This, guys, really is. It's always tough to say this is the most important thing you need to do, but this changed my life. I think I've made it, crystal clear. It is the single greatest thing that I was able to do to be able to accomplish so much more with so much less. All right, and do I get into hunting and farming? Yes, we'll get into hunting and farming in this session. So we can talk about, the different ways to find people. But there's nothing more profound than understanding that the concept of dialing for dollars just doesn't work, right? I mean, does anyone out here feel like they have success calling hundreds of people? I mean, let me ask you, is there anyone out there who isn't making cold calls anymore because you've been in the business for years and you've penetrated all your targets? Anyone?
No.
No, but but I'm not being cute because there are absolutely niche players in perm and temp that will say, well, if it's not all, it's most of them. But you need to have a very, very narrow focus in order to pull that off. But I hated cold calling. All right? I hated it. I hated the planning for it. I hated the rejection that I got on it. I hated the low statistics and the numbers on it. I hated the mood that it put me in afterwards. I hated how, if I was in a great mood going into it, how, I can't say it bummed me out necessarily, but it certainly took away all my energy. I hated really everything about it. And that's why this Tony Robbins course that I took 20 years ago was life-changing. And, you know, I'm going to give you all the same challenge, you know, that you know, he gave to me, but it was incredible. You know, but look at how many different clients you have and that you deal with. And the reason why, you know, people don't follow up is because they don't like it and because it's so hard. You know, the example, again, that I gave in boot camp, and I didn't get too much into it on the video, was that it hit me really hard after I became an executive, because I was the guy that all of the recruiting firms were looking to call to pitch and to try to get business nationally on my firm. I was the guy that every copier salesperson, software company, etc., would call and try to make things happen. You name it, payroll system services, anything. And my assistant screened every single call that I had, every single one, and I had her. And I would not pick up my phone if it rang, if I didn't know who it was. And so people would leave a message, and they'd get screened out, and that would get rid of, you know, most people. Now, because my name would go to the bottom of their virtual Rolodex, and they move on to the next call. And then maybe they'd call back a month later, and they'd do that again. And after they've tried that for 3 months, and I don't pick up, maybe that's the end of it. Well, you get some aggressive ones, or I should say more aggressive, who would decide that they're going to follow up with Neil again, and now they're going to wait till after hours, or maybe they're going to try it in the morning, and maybe I do pick up the phone. So they get me on the line. Or they send me a note, and they say, look, they're going to call, and here's an email, and I'm going to follow up at a certain day. All right, those who send emails don't really follow up. Those who say they'll follow up on a certain day, all I have to do is not take that call, and I never hear from them again. Right? It happens, again, because there's too many people. There's no ownership. There's no compelling reason to want to pull this off, right? No compelling reason. And the reason I think Tony Robbins, or Anthony, depending on the state that he's going in, decided to get into the sales training game is because it taps right into all of the other stuff that all these, you know, motivational gurus talk about. And, you know, when it comes to cold calling or being successful in sales, it's about being motivated. And it's about having motivation that sticks to pick up the phone and to make something happen. And again, no one gets motivated by making cold calls. So all of the great motivators in the world for anything, whether it's workout, whether it's, you know, spiritual, it's all about your compelling reason, right? Why? Why do I want to do this? Now, we could talk about this, which we do in our live boot camps. We actually open up the sessions talking about your life's motivation and what are you trying to accomplish and why did you get into this business and why do you want to make it happen? Why? Tangibly real. What's the purpose? And it's not just money. You know, come on. It isn't just money. Maybe money is a big thing, but there's lots of reasons why you do it. When we do manager stuff, we get to understand why employees are coming to work every day, what makes them tick. And you need to do that to yourself, not just from the big picture motivation and why, which is important as an aside, but why for this phone call? Why? And how hard is it to get excited to make 100 phone calls? So the answer is do the same thing that you would do to motivate any big change, whether it's quitting smoking, whether it's losing weight. Again, most people are finally able to quit smoking when they have a compelling reason, when they're just coughing so bad or they get so sick that they realize that they're done, when a friend or a family member gets diagnosed with cancer, when they just end up stinking or throwing up because they drank too much and the cigarette put them over the edge, whatever the case is, they want a compelling reason. So what I am proposing to you is you will never find a compelling reason to cold call. You will never find a compelling reason to make 50 phone calls a day or a week or whatever your situation is. You're not going to. What I will suggest is if you only focus on a very limited amount, a very specific amount, a very focused amount, and you take ownership for them, you will be motivated. So let's hold that thought and come right back to this. This is the lovely scale that you saw. as I mentioned, you see it in most of my presentations, and as I talked to you about on Tuesday, the reason why that quality can trump quantity so much is now I think very obvious to you, and probably was before. So we talked about both quality of the type of call that you make, and quality, of course, not only of the type of call that you make, but quality of the type of prospect that you're calling. So again, quality, and we're going to get into that in leads, and the best person you could possibly call, the better our focus, the greater the likelihood for success, right? The better that call is statistically. And then the great thing is, if you have this mission, if you have this passion about really limiting who it is you're going to follow up with and try to break into, then the quality of your call itself is actually going to be better, because you're going to do the homework that you need. You're going to do the research that you need. Okay, so, Tom, and assuming, maybe another one or two of you didn't watch the full video, let me elaborate on it. If you remember from the video, the way I was basically told, and the way I've taught people for 20 years, is to pretend that there's a gun to your head. So, right, because at the face of it, everyone agrees that I'd be much better off making phone calls that have a higher likelihood of success. Right, so if I make a call and this sort of type of group that I call has a 1 in 20 chance of giving me an order, that's better than calling a group of people where I have a 1 in 100 chance of getting an order, right? If I were to call 100 people on the first group, I'm going to land 5 orders. If I call 100 people on the second, I'm going to land 1 order, right? I'd rather call 3 people in Florida to sell them ice than I'd rather even make 1,000 phone calls to Eskimos in the Arctic to sell them ice, right? Obviously, the better the quality of the prospect, the better our results are going to be. So do it to the nth degree. Pretend there's a gun to your head. Pretend you're going to be shot if you do not generate a job order by the end of the day. If you can't generate a job order by the end of the day, you will be shot. Okay, that means you need to call the person with the greatest likelihood of success. You have to, in other words, have the best quality of prospect that you can have. So talk to me, guys. What would you do? So you now have, by the end of the day, tell me, does anyone think that that call wouldn't be different than the calls you normally make? So speak up. All right, so who would like to volunteer? So tell me what you're going to do now. The clock's ticking. It's 12:27 Eastern Time. You've got 5 hours. Please tell me what this is going to look like. How's the prospect going to differ from some of the others that you've been calling?
Well, to begin with, I would go directly to the decision maker.
All right, so Beryl, it would differ because now, without question, there's no way you're going to call HR or even someone not involved. You can't risk it. We're going to have to go to the decision maker. Have to.
Exactly.
All right, good. What else?
Get
I would
referral
beg
of
to
the
tell them there's a
candidates
gun to
who
my
is
head.
recruiting.
I'm sorry, there was Lubos, and I think, Lubos, what did you say?
Get referrals of the candidates, potential hot candidates, let's say the senior placed, and get know who is recruiting, who they have been speaking to, and follow it.
All right, so you're talking about, so what I would do is I would talk to candidates and I would get leads to where they're interviewing and where they're speaking. All right, good. Julia? What else?
Sorry. As far as having the job order, it's really using that pre-close. What do I need to do to get this position filled today? Having the right candidate, and using the what-if statements to see if we can get the client to close.
Right. No. So I'm with you. But let's say you don't have that temp order, right? You need to get that order. You need to get this temp placement today. By the end of the day, you have to have this done. What are you going to do, Angela? What would you do? What else? What else would be different from a normal prospect?
Well, I would target companies that I know actually have orders that are open.
All right. So where orders are open, and similar to what Lubo said, right? So where orders are open.
Right.
I mean, you all would agree that clearly, I mean, anyone have other things? There's a ton I'm going to throw out. What other things? Just keep throwing out ideas. What else would you make darn sure you're going to do. All right, so now we know that they're open. So putting them all together, right? We know that there's a need. We know that they've got a temp position open. We know that they use. What else are you going to do?
Market the most placeable candidate.
That's it. So I'd probably take a candidate that I know can, start a temp assignment that I know is awesome, so at least I can get it filled. So even if you don't market them, yep, you're going to want to do it where you make darn sure you have the inventory. Yep, what else would you do? Let's say you now have 10 of those. How do you narrow those down?
10 of those what, candidates?
How would you narrow? Yep. Well, no, I mean, not narrow down the candidates. How would you narrow down, what other features would you want, Roman, for this prospect to have for you to make that one call? They now all have some sort of an opening there. You have a candidate that's good for it, and then you'd still market them. What else would be, something that you would make narrow it down even more so that your likelihood for success would go up?
Well, I know here in Phoenix there's a couple companies around that just have those reputations where nobody wants to go work at. Even if they're hiring, there's a reason they're always hiring. It's because nobody wants to work there. So if you have the option, you'd kind of want to stay away from that if you have that option.
Right. So on the flip side, you'd select the companies that are sexier, if you will, or more appealing to candidates, right? Make sure
if I had that choice,
that placement actually happening, right? Yep. All right. What else? What else would y'all do? Anything else that you'd look at? Would you go ahead now and just make the phone call? What other things would you do?
I would do research on the person I'm calling. I try to find them on LinkedIn. I try to find them on LinkedIn, or I try to find them on company website, what have you. But I think somebody else said that before. Go directly to the hiring manager.
Well, they say go directly to, but the going in LinkedIn or whatever is different. I mean, honestly.
Well, no, but you try to find out who the hiring manager is.
No, I agree with you fully. I think both answers are absolutely right. And I think that's a great answer, Angela. Yeah, we want to do our homework on it, right? We'll go to the website. We'll go to LinkedIn. Now, listen, this isn't rocket science, right? Because you guys all know that. There's not a sales course or even intuition in the world that doesn't know, yes, I should go to websites. I should look at articles that the company has been mentioned. And yes, I should do a keyword search on Google under the name of the prospect that I'm going to try to call. Yes, I should go onto LinkedIn. Yes, I should talk to people that have worked with this person or worked in the company and learn everything I can before I pick up the phone and make this call. Yes, I should see where this hiring manager has written articles or responses so I could talk to them educated about something. Yes, since they are in a special niche or a special hospital or a special company, I should do some research on that so I have some buzzwords. We all know that. Who does that even a lot? Anyone honestly can say that they do that a lot? Or it's a regular part of your MO?
Probably not enough.
I'll wait. Right. I mean, I never get anyone that actually raises their hand and says yes. I get some that say, you know what, I'm pretty good, but no. And then when you strip it down, people don't. So you tell me this. If you were to go back, if the Internet didn't exist and, we didn't have all this great stuff at our disposal, and 15 years ago, I told all you that in 15 years you're going to have a library at your fingertips and you're going to have this concept like LinkedIn and all this information you can get. Who wouldn't at least believe that they'd be all over that, using that to maximize their call, every single time? You'd be like, of course I would. Yet you're not. Now, why aren't you? What's the real reason? And it ties back to what we opened with. Why don't salespeople do this?
They can easily call somebody else.
There's too many people on the target.
Yeah, they absolutely can. I mean, it's just there's no ownership, right? It's a pain in the ass.
It's too time-consuming.
It's right.
I mean, at the end of the day, Neil,
time-consuming.
Yeah, it's time-consuming. If somebody's sitting at a desk and their directive from their superior, their leader, is to make 100, 150 calls a week or a day or whatever it is, they don't have time to sit down and figure out everything they need to know about their potential client before they make that phone call. So you need to change the mindset of your leadership a little bit, and then show them the results if you can make a more educated call. And
Well, I also don't always know how to use the information. I just a week or two ago saw a girl who was on LinkedIn, and she's a yoga instructor, and you know, I wasn't sure if I bring that up, she's going to think I'm stalking her, or it's just kind of weird to do that kind of research. I wouldn't want someone looking me up and talking about my non-work related stuff on a call.
If you show up at her yoga class, you might be stalking her.
I use it to see where the person went to school, because if I have 10 candidates that are qualified and one of them went to the same school, that's the one I'm going to market.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I'm not going to say, hey, you went to UCLA when the guy that I'm marketing him to went to USC. So I don't, I take information, but I don't come out and say, hey, I saw that you went here. I try to, cater to what they're, what might be a hook for them.
Yeah, now, for LinkedIn, because you're all on it and it's such a critical tool, we'll be doing a whole session on it, and we'll pull the internet up right down the screen and we'll all play with it, and I'll show you some really great things to utilize it. That's just one example, though. Okay, there's a ton of things. Of course, if someone was calling me and they just took a little time and they made the call and they start throwing out things like, hey, Neil, hey, it's funny, I grew up in the same town where you grew up, and one of the things I think we have in common, I saw what you did about motivating the troops, was the article that you had in, Fortune magazine. I worked with, I don't know if you knew, but I used to work with Jeanette and with Stephen at my, previous company. I knew them pretty well, and I know that it sounds like they've done a great job in your company, and so look, you have lots of stuff going on now. I know you're just implementing your new computers. Again, what kind of a call is that as opposed to the call that most recruiters make? So back to everyone's point, yes, it is more time consuming, but what's more fun? Making 100 cold calls, and let's use the one we have to have the $100 a day. Let's even call it 100 a week. What's more fun, making 100 a week or making 5 a week and, 50 information calls, or spending time doing the research or doing the homework or networking, again, to find people that know people in that company that can help you, that could put in a good word, right? It takes time, it does, but the point is it takes time to save you time. So if you could spend 2 hours researching something in order to save you 3 hours or 4 hours of cold calling, or if not more, isn't that time well spent? Right? So everyone buys into the fact that, okay, Neil, I get it. If this is my only one, of course I'm going to do everything I can to maximize the likelihood that I'm going to land this account. Do everything I can. Right? So it's not just LinkedIn. I'm definitely going to go into my database. I am definitely going to call my candidates that work for this person. I'm definitely going to see who listed that person as a reference. And maybe I'm going to try to call that person as a reference from someone else and then turn it into a call and talk to them about the temp project they have going on now. Right? You're going to do all of these things that are obvious, but because each of them increases the likelihood of success. But again, it normally just flows out as, I'm sure I know I should call someone as a reference, but we're filling jobs, we're doing this, I'm going to, just go ahead and make my normal call. So why, by doing that, you're saying, I know I can invest 4 hours and increase the likelihood of success of me doing something on that call massively, from what's probably a 1% success to it could go anywhere. Certainly, I would bet you it's going to go up to 15, 20%, if not more, as you get better at everything else. So, but forget about what the number is. You need a passion and a reason, and you need to have ownership. And if you go after something that you really want, you will accomplish it. So again, this quantity versus quality thing. Quantity is still going to be important. And Bill, for those people, as you mentioned, that are out there, that your boss is breathing down your neck. I always had bosses breathing down my neck. But you know what? As soon as I was able to solicit, more job orders that other people were working on or make more placements, they left me alone. What I will tell you when we come up with the challenge that we're going to have due for next Thursday, so you have a week to work on it, is if your managers give you a hard time, you'll let them know that they can't because they paid for you for this course and to just work with you on this for a week. Okay. So that said, back to the main point here. Dialing for dollars doesn't work for you, and you know it. Okay? You know it. and you're all looking for ways to generate more business, and I am telling you, this is as big as a silver bullet as exists in the industry. You will find out that it absolutely works. The same way Tony Robbins was able to tell a room of people selling everything that when they come back to the class next week and they share the success from the challenge, that 80% or more of the people will have, met the goal and accomplished what they really never thought that they'd be able to pull off. And the key is laser focus. Less is more, right? So, here's what we're going to do. Now, I really need you. Did everyone come with their prospects? Right? I asked everyone to come up with 2 prospects. Okay? So based on what we're saying now, I'd just like to hear quickly from a couple of you. You don't have to mention the name if you don't want to, but give an example of the type of prospect it is and why you selected them as one of your 2, and whether you're still going to stick with them or whether you're going to change your mind after what we talked about today. Okay? So let's go with Kristen.
Okay, mine is for the hospitals, our current temps, penetrating the current temps, and penetrating the current clients.
All right, so these are prospects that actually know you and work with you already?
Yes.
Are you talking about penetrating with new hiring decision makers or within the existing ones?
For the temps, for going through as in what other employers that they work for, getting more information on our current temps to keep them working for us full time.
All right, now the penetration is good, but what I'm actually looking at when we're going to select the 2 prospects that you're going to start using for today through next week is a new prospect. Now, it could be a new person, an existing client, but it has to be someone that's been hard to reach, someone that you've been trying to that you haven't had success with, or a brand new company that you've been looking to break into because they use a lot of nurses or they use a lot of finance people. They've got a lot of engineers in there. All right, so who you're going to pick there. Okay, so let's go with
Neil?
Let's go. Yes.
It's Burl. What I've
Hi, Burl.
been trying to do is, there's a company that I've been trying to get into in LA, and I got a hold finally of the person that I thought was the decision maker, and got a phone call back from Human Resources giving me the name of the decision maker. So that alone, because Human Resources was so nice and took the time to call me back, that's my key person that I'm going to market to. It's not, it's the decision.
Wow, that's interesting. HR actually telling you to call the line.
Yeah,
That's
it was
a high
very
class
cool.
problem.
So I'm going
All
after
right.
that company.
Roman, awesome. Roman, what'd you pick?
Yeah, well, there's actually 2 companies here that I'm trying to get in with, and they're companies that I've been calling on for the last 2 years since I've been here with Superior, and I know who the right person is to talk to, but we never really had anything that's past the kind of cold call checking in stage. I haven't been able to form that relationship that they know who I am, and that they can talk to me about things that are maybe other than temp staffing related. So there's still a lot of work to be done here, even though I've spoken with these people in the past.
Okay, good. What I'd like you to do, and what I'd like everyone to do, is to come up with, for next Thursday, the 2 accounts that you want to break into. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have a contractor out on assignment by next week, although that would be the ideal situation here. It could be, again, just a big appointment with this guy that Roman's been trying to get, and for whatever reason just has not been able to make that happen. So the appointment would be good. If you get 1 appointment and 1 fill, that'll be awesome. It could be a big user in your space that uses a competitor, and you've made some calls, you've been trying. Any great lead or prospect. Now, again, we're going to go around the room on next Thursday, and we're going to hear what everyone did and how and why and how much fun they had or didn't have or what they stumbled across. And it's going to be a massive eye-opener because I'm really counting on all you to come back with the success, because if you do nothing but focus on these 2, which is what I'm going to ask you to do, you're going to have incredible success with it. The key is to find the best prospect that you can, the best lead. And we're going to get into leads and what we do with them. And we'll start that after we finish the whole territory stuff, which will continue with the territory stuff and farming management next week. If we have time, we'll begin on leads. If not, we go into that after, which will be, we'll see on Thursday or then after the holidays. Spend time finding the better quality prospects. So if you don't have any good leads, spend time sourcing for this. If you're not quite sure who's using all these temps, then talk to a whole bunch of people, talk to a bunch of candidates, and find out where they've been going so you can really identify. All of you, I think, being that you're all pretty seasoned, should have a pretty good idea. Teresa and Lupos, obviously this applies very much to perm, and you're going to want to find the best perm people that you're trying to break into. Okay, so that's the challenge. I want you to come up with these, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to allow your managers to not have you make your normal marketing calls that they always do. You will obviously have to do what you normally do in terms of appointments that you have set up that you're already committed on. Other than that, don't focus on any new ones. Obviously, you'll need to recruit or meet any candidates that you have that you've normally have to deal with in the course of a week. And obviously, you're going to need to fill some orders that you have. What I need you to do is not get inundated, and it's a good thing that business is a bit slow right now, because one of the challenges with this is you need to certainly make time to make these calls and to follow up with your plan and your strategy. And if you're inundated with such a busy desk where you have no time to do anything, then that's hard because you're not going to get around to the marketing. But I only want you to focus for new business development. Whoop, I'm still here, it looks like, okay? Yep. I only want you to focus on new business development on 2 prospects. Now, in order to do that, think about what you need to do. Right? You need to come up with a plan of what you're gonna do when you pick up that phone. Meaning, we already talked about some things. All right. Now that I've identified the client, I'm going to my database. Right? I'm going to do a search under the company. I'm going to find any person that's ever ideally worked for the person because I know maybe I'm going to try a reference call on that person. Now, you don't have to write down what I'm saying. I want this to be your plan. All right, I'm going to go in and talk to anyone that worked in the company in the database just to learn about the company, what's been going on in departments, and see what they can tell me about this person and to make sure that they're the right person. I'm going to go on LinkedIn and Facebook and MySpace and see what this person tweets on Twitter if they do. Right? Once I have all my information, I'm going to decide the angle I'm going to take. In this case, maybe I'm going to do an MPT. That's my approach. No, I'm going to do a reference check and turn it into an MPT. My MPT, I'm going to make sure they're awesome, and I'm going to really work on my sizzle and my great speech that I'm going to do. If I call them and I list the rest of the steps I'm going to take, and they don't pick up the phone, I'm not going to leave a message. That's my step 18. Instead, I'm going to keep calling back till they pick up the phone so I don't have to put the destiny in their hands. Boy, now, again, this isn't the end of the day challenge. This is a 1-week challenge. So your head doesn't ever get blown off, and now, all of a sudden, you now have 7 full days, 5 business days. So if by day 2 I still try and I don't get there, I'm going to try calling at 7:30 in the morning on my commute in, or I'm going to try calling at 6 at night on my commute out, see maybe if I could bypass the screening people. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try to find their email on the web, and I'm going to send them a warm-up message letting them know I've been trying to reach, see if they could talk to me. I'm going to try to send them a LinkedIn, use an introduction or an invite, or I'm going to call another person again at the company and ask them to send a message to that person. If that doesn't work, I am on Wednesday going to FedEx out a handwritten note or typed up personal letter of why I would love to talk to them. Again, you all get this? You see what I'm talking about? Right? Any questions on this? It's completely different from an approach you would normally take. What I am telling you is, A, it will be a personal challenge for you. B, when you do land them, you're going to feel amazed. And I guarantee that we will have very good success on this call from the group next week because you can't give up. There are 2 of them. You're not going to want to leave a message because the only place you can put that call is behind the next sheet. And as soon as you're done with that one, this one's going to pop up again. Right? So you will have this great passion to get creative, to not let them blow you off. When you get them on the phone, trust me, you're going to be excited to give them your spiel. When they tell you they're not using anyone else, they're happy with their vendor, they do have a project going on, but it's covered. You're not going to accept that at the face because this is all that you have. You're going to ask them to meet with you. And by the way, you might decide on day 4 or 3 in the afternoon, I'm just going to stop by and knock and tell them, you know, I really wanted to sit down with them. You'll do anything and everything you can to let them know that you're different, let them know that you have great follow-up, let them know that you're really committed, and that you really need to break it. Okay? And again, if you get an objection and you strike out, you're, of course, not going to give up because you still didn't fail. You're now going to actually go back and try a different angle to convince them, whatever it is. Maybe it just might be the visit. Okay? So you're going to do anything and everything you can. What questions do we have on this? And Tom, I don't know, since you didn't see the video, do you need me to elaborate, or is this sort of crystal clear?
No, that's fine, and I'll watch it pretty shortly here.
All right. Do we have any questions from anyone on this? Anyone? Okay. If you do, email me afterwards, okay? Or you can pick up the phone and call me so that we can really go through it. Have some fun. I mean, I do tell the story in my live boot camps, and Bill heard it. To this day, I remember both job orders that I was going after. Now, in my case, I was running a perm desk as a manager at the time, and I decided I would just take the time to source for the very best leads I could. Where they're interviewing, where they're hiring right now, through an agency, through a direct competitor that I know pays my fees, so I don't have to lose it for that, and through a competitor that I didn't think was awesome, and it had everything I needed. And the story is so great because one of them was with Six Flags amusement parks, and the thing I didn't know, now they didn't have LinkedIn, they didn't have all this great stuff, so I didn't know that they weren't actually physically based in Parsippany, New Jersey. When I called, it turns out that they were based in Dallas, Texas, and they were moving soon to Parsippany. So there was nothing even local here yet. So yeah, great opportunity as they're going to be staffing up a whole new place. Really bad as, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Now I can't stop by there. Now I'm not local to their market. What am I going to do? So I did all the tricks that you can do back in the days of fax machines and only secretaries screening it. And I'll never forget, in my case, what got the guy, and he blew me off, and I got blown off by an assistant, by everyone. Finally got a guy that told me the guy I needed to talk to, and this guy just kept blowing me off, and I got him by FedExing him out an incredibly compelling letter. And it was from the heart, and it landed on his desk at 8:30 the next day by FedEx, and I basically begged him to call me. If not, I'd be calling him at this time precisely, and to please just at least take it, and I'll be really respectful of your time. And I'll never forget, the guy called me after he read the letter. Now, he called me to blow me off, which is awesome because he appreciated how hard I was working to reach him, that he actually called me to blow me off. Now, I wasn't going to let him blow me off. This was one of my 2 things that I wanted to be really proud when I went to class the next week, and I really wanted to be committed to doing this. And I gave him my best objection handling, so we're happy with the current agency. I gave my best to, we want to, keep it on the DL, right? I gave him my best. And when he said no, I kept going back with better objection handling. But I was ready for that call when that call came, and it was awesome. And another one's a very similar story, but the point is, if you do this and you go with passion, you'll always land it. This was so successful for so many people in the class that I adopted this as my regular modus operandi going forward, both running a perm desk and managing temp people and perm people. It is such an MO that when we integrate this with the leads and the lead gathering and the systems and tools and processes that I'll share with you and that you can utilize when it comes to sourcing all the great information, all I would ever do is manage any business via very limited and specific targets. And specifically, but again, this is for the next part, that are gathered by lead information on what's hot and what's happening now. So it doesn't have to be a lead now. And again, I'd suggest not to make both of them leads where there are things now, but I'd make one like that, and I'd make one just a really big prospect or a really big company that you've been looking to crack into, because you'll definitely be able to crack into them. But as I said, this is how, as a manager, I would work with sales reps. The way I got an impact from afar is that I would hold the salespeople accountable for 2 accounts. So the next time I came to Boston, or the next time I came to, Florence, Italy, here's the accounts. We've talked about them. These are the 2 we're going to follow up on. We're going to go through everything you did, what you found out about them, what sort of follow-up calls you made, and that's it. I wouldn't follow up with, 80 accounts or 100 accounts or just look at their revenues. I knew that as a manager, if I held people accountable, that they would feel pressure, that they would want to get it done, that they knew that I wasn't going away, and it would give them that laser focus. Right? So that's, again, it doesn't matter whether you're a manager or not. For those of you who do manage, you'll want to utilize this concept for the people. For those of you who are on your own desk, you're going to want to do this for yourself. Hold yourself accountable for just a very, very specific focus, and if you do that, you will be shocked. And that's it. So temp people, that's all I would do. Outside sales reps, that's all I would do. Perm recruiters, for sure, that's all that I would do. And for the life of me, I never, ever get into, why someone's going to want to farm when they could be hunting. Okay, so that's the gist of the concept there. All right, let me just quickly see what you got there. You're still seeing it. All right, for the as we get into the next part of this, when we go into the next sessions, we're going to talk about what the territory even should look like. Those of you that are on the outside, Roman, I think you said you have a physical territory outside with the clients.
No, I mean it's Arizona.
All right, so it's all of Arizona. So
yeah.
Let's pretend this is Arizona. What I would do is just to show you how you take this to the true. What I would do to take this to the end is take a physical territory, and besides just this concept of 2, obviously we're going to raise the number beyond 2 down the road, and very soon down the road. But I would take an actual territory and decide what should that territory look like. How big should the territory be? So the easy way I did it is I would look at gigantic competitors that, sort of own the U.S. And in this market, even though we only have 2 outside sales reps, they have 12. So we know they break the market into 12 territories. I would then break the market into 12 territories. I would give the sales rep 1/12 of the entire territory. Now again, this is a physical territory. Some of you work on, not Arizona, but you'll deal with just, different types of products or specialties throughout the country. You still don't want the whole country as your territory. So when I would cut people's territories, they would get upset, they would threaten to quit, and it was hard in the beginning until I had the complete confidence that I would change their lives and not allow them to dial for dollars, not allow them to constantly be cold calling. It would force them to build relationships and to limit the number of people that they call. So it would force them to source for leads and information and everything within their territory. So I strongly suggest for those of you who do have the entire geography or area to personally cut your territory. You can always make it bigger, but I'm telling you, you will be more successful. I have just done it so many times, and I could give you a bunch of cases of people that even one person that started as a secretary in a company I worked at, my old one, and became a very good person on the desk, became a pretty decent sales rep, but it wasn't until I came in there and cut her territory into 1/4 that she finally realized what it is she was doing wrong. Wow, my voice is going. Okay, so this is the key. I think with the other video, it's going to give it much more sense. The last slide I want to show you is, basically this concept of a territory. Now, our business is so wacky because we don't deal with territory, right? We just call whomever. We call all of Arizona. We call any hospital in the area. We call any firm that has an IT department, right? But what do sophisticated sales companies do? Those that have spent money developing plans that work. I mean, if you sell Entenmann's or Famous Amos cookies, or you're selling Frito-Lay, or you're selling Budweiser to bars and to restaurants, and to obviously, sports facilities or whatever, what are you going to do? Well, you can't sell it to all of Arizona, for starters. They don't let you. They take the number of people, right, that can be called in a given period of time. They decide how many stores there are, how many sporting venues there are, how many bars there are, and then how many pitches do these guys have to have per week, roughly how many people are in a company, and how often do we need to meet with them, how often should we be face-to-face. And then they do all that, and they just divide. They figure out, based upon this, a territory to sell Budweiser can only be 2 miles long in this city, because they'll never have enough time to do more than that to do it effectively, to constantly be back, to build the relationship, to take them out to lunch. Okay, so maybe it's not 2 blocks. Maybe it's a quarter of the city. Maybe it's a 12th of Arizona. Right? Maybe it's a third of Paramus, New Jersey. But whatever the case is, they do that, and you want to do it for the same reason. Limit it so you can become an expert with your relationships and with your people. It also means when you have a territory like the experts set up, you can't be blown off that easily because it's a big bar in your territory. So even though they blew you off, you're going to try a different approach next time. You're going to try something else, right? And that's the point. Okay, so this next slide I don't think you need to see. It's your top 2 plan. So as I mentioned, next time we're not going to get into, which is going to be Tuesday, we're not going to get into your success on this because you have all week to do it. We'll do that on Thursday. On Tuesday, we're going to get into some advanced call planning and hunting and farming, and I'm going to give you tools and things that you need. Okay? Some of you will love them. Some of you are only going to want to hunt from now on. We're then going to start, and we're going to get into the lead session, which that, along with this, I think will change the way that you do business. And we're going to talk whether we source for temp business, where it is, how we can get more of it, and how you can be more efficient. Okay? So as I'm losing my voice, let's see if we have any other questions. Any questions at all, guys? Don't be shy. Anyone? All right. Do not forget to email me your objection handling stuff. Okay, so I really want to hear what it is that you want to hear about. Okay? Everything that you want to hear. I want you to do nothing but focus on these prospects. I'm going to trust you. I normally, as a manager, will have people submit the prospects to me so that if they strike out, they can't just switch them. But honestly, if I need to do that, you'll just be cheating yourselves. So stick with the 2. You can't switch them, right, once you start. And there's a lesson there too. If you picked one and it turns out that they moved and you'll not be able to do anything else, all right, then switch it. Okay? Keep detailed notes because we're going to do that next Thursday. So if there's no questions, I thank you all. I will see you all bright and early-ish on Tuesday. And carpe diem. And don't be a stranger. Okay, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you.